Who doesn't love a perfect grilled pork chop? Today, we're going to get into the nuances of making the perfect and most tender pork chop of all. Today, I'm going to make some pork chops. Pork chops. Who doesn't love pork chops? I mean, you know, you go to the grocery store, you've seen them. They're sitting there in their little plastic wrap with the little bone on one side, and well, it's about what, the width of your pinky? Yeah, you know something, I really don't like my pork chops like that. Number one, they're a bit too thin. Number two, they have a tendency to shrink up and cup if you don't remember to cut the fat along the edges. They also have a tendency to overcook and be a little dry and leathery. I don't like my pork chop that way. Now, some time back I decided I want better pork chops, so I just stopped buying those things and I started buying the whole muscle, which is basically it's just the loin, okay? And here's how you need to see this. The pork chop or the pork loin is the exact same cut as on beef as the ribeye is. And so you're getting that loin cut. The loin on pork is a very simple item. It's about the diameter of your leg, and usually anywhere from a foot to 16 inches in length. The pork tenderloin, however, is about the diameter of your wrist and generally the length of 8 inches to a foot, and sometimes a little longer. In the case of these, they're just a little bit longer. These are about 14 inches long. When I purchased this package, I didn't know there was 2 of them in there. I opened it up and here we have them. So we're going to be making pork chops today. And the way I like to make pork chops isn't to use the common cut, which is the loin, but I like to use the less common cut, the tenderloin. And let me show you how to take a tenderloin and make your actual pork chops. And here's kind of how to see this. Now, the pork tenderloin is equivalent to the beef tenderloin, and the beef tenderloin is where you get your filet mignon. So what you have here is the equivalent in pork of a filet. We're going to make a filet steak out of pork. And I am not going to just cross-cut it, but I'm going to cross-cut it and we're going to reshape it a little bit. And we're going to change the structure, season it up just the right way, and cook it the right way. And so there's a few balances that have to be struck here. And when everything comes together right, I guarantee you, you're going to have the most tender, delicious, juicy pork chops you've ever tasted. Doing it this way, definitely the best way. Now come over here. Let me show you how I like to cut these up and fix them for pork chops. Come on. Now in a moment we're going to get into cutting these and prepping them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be making cuts that are longer than what you would normally make just for a pork chop. In other words, thicker. And then we're going to pound them down to the thickness we want. Now you might be thinking it's not necessary. There are tenderloins that are already tender. We're not just doing it to make it more tender. We're doing it also to get a different shape. And from this, we get a great, great cook. Trust me, it's just something that I discovered some years back and it really works. Once I cook these and I pound them down, and I like to use something like this, I'm going to be seasoning it the same way I like to do a nice ribeye steak or a good strip steak or something like that. I like to season simple. I'll use some salt and I'll use what they call seasoned pepper. And there's different brands of seasoned pepper, but they're usually similar items, and it's generally black pepper and paprika and sometimes some bell pepper or other types of sweet peppers mixed in there. And sometimes they'll also include garlic or onion or something like that. But most of them are, as a seasoned pepper, they work really, really well on meats, and that's kind of what they're put together for. So in this case, I'm going to say, hey, let's, instead of pulling out different spices, let's cheat a little bit and use a seasoned pepper. Also, we're going to be, in the prepping, I wanted to show you something different here. This little guy is what they call a meat tenderizer. The original brand that came out on this was called Jacquard, and so a lot of people know them as a Jacquard. And what they are is they're actually just a row of knives, small, sharp, very, very sharp little knives, and then a base that is heavily spring-loaded. So it takes a lot of pressure to push that up. And the idea here is the knives open up the meat by separating the fibers of meat where they connect. And in doing that, it does make it more tender. Now, believe it or not, these things were actually made illegal in restaurants in France. That's right, the country that invented this product, it's illegal to use them in the restaurants there. And that is because some people that were disreputable were taking less costly cuts of meat, running them with a meat tenderizer like this, and then selling it as a more expensive cut of meat. They were misrepresenting their product. So the government had to make changes. Now, when it comes to this, I like to just use the bottom of a plain pan. Something with a rounded edge, not too sharp, because the sharp edge will damage the meat as you're trying to pound it. The rounded edge can actually assist you in flattening that meat because it speeds up the process a little bit. Has a little harder hit. When I'm doing this, I like to just glove up. I'll put these in a plastic bag to pound them as we cut them. Let me get fixed up here. Now, when I'm making my pork chops, I will start with my cutlets. Now, let me show you something. When you're talking about a beef fillet, the mignon is actually this part right here, from here down. That would be that tip, that mignon. Your head meat is this part up here where the little flap is right here. It's actually a separate muscle that runs at a different angle, and so you have two muscles there. This is, frankly, if you're going to get the best cut on a tenderloin, it isn't this. It's this up here. It's more tender and more flavorful because of the additional fat. Head meat's going to give you your best cut for a fillet either way. Now, when I want to cut my pork chops, I like to make a cut that's about 1.5 inches long. And when it's pounded out, that makes an absolutely beautiful pork chop. See there? When I press that down, I'm just doing it with my hand. You can see what that does. And this makes the most fantastic cooking pork chop you've ever seen. Now, if I left it like that, it would pull back in and would reshape itself on the fire just like that. So I'm going to prevent that from happening. I'll show you how we do that. And that's just through that pounding process. Now, when you get to this end here, you've got a couple of choices. You can have a small pork chop or an odd pork chop, one that's just kind of sideways. This one, I'd do a couple of small ones like that. And that's good for the dog or for the kids. Hey, either way. Yes, that's right. I'll stack the kids up there with the dog. Don't get mad at me. Okay, I'm just joking around here. Now, same thing here. About 1.5 inches. So, 1 inch right to there, another 1/2 inch to there. And this one, we had that much left, so we're going to do it that way. Next is pounding these things down, and that's easy enough. So a couple of things is going to happen here when I do this to this meat. When you go pounding down meat, let me get just an average cut here to start with the first time. When you're pounding out meat, what's happening there is you're pressing the fibers out away from connective tissue. Connective tissue that holds the meat into the shape that it is. In other words, that round shape. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to break those two apart from each other, which helps it to hold its shape during the cook. This is something cooks do a lot to control movement in the meat, and it's not unusual. Okay, so take your skillet and give it a good pounding, right like that. Okay, so there we go. There's our first beautiful fillet. Lovely pork chop. Do each and every one of these the exact same way, and then we'll get on with seasoning out our fillets. Very tender. Absolutely beautiful. Earlier today, my grill was just caked over with residue from the stuff I've been cooking lately. Lots of fats and things, and it gets built up. I took it in, scrub them, and of course there's always a certain amount left over. You bring them back out, set them over the grill, and fire it up and heat it up really hot with a closed lid. When this thing gets about 650, it will incinerate all of that off of there, and you just come out and dust off the remaining ash, and you've got clean grates. This works every single time, and I've been doing it this way for many years. Some other things I wanted to mention to you before we get started on this about flavoring your food. Sometimes we like to smoke, especially here in Texas. We smoke our meats and things like that, and it comes out to some really good food. So that's exactly what I want to do today. I want to do a little bit of smoked food. So sometimes we just make a little pouch. It's as simple as this. And this is a smoking pouch. And it doesn't have to be fancy, folks. It can be a little torn and broken. There we have it. A couple of holes. There. It doesn't take much, just a couple of small ones, and you're going to get all the smoke you need. I like to place this right over my heat dispersers. Just under the grate. And when I do that, I get a great smoke release. I get fantastic tasting pork chops. Oh, that's the way to go, let me tell you. So that's what we're going to do. Now, there's a debate. Do you grill open lid or do you grill closed lid? Some people say if it's closed lid, you're actually baking. Well, folks, that's not true. You can grill either way, and it's grilling both ways, all right? And both ways are entirely correct, all right? So do it the way you like. But I need to mention, if you're smoking or something like that, it is really best to cook closed lid because you're not going to get enough smoke on your food if it's all just coming straight up back here. All right, when I close that lid, it circulates that smoke. I get a beautiful smoky flavor in my cuts, and we end up with fabulous tasting food. That's the way we're going to do these. Now, to heat this up, to get it ready, how long do you preheat it? Stuff like that. People ask me these questions, so here it is. On a gas grill like this is a 3-burner. I'm going to be cooking all of those chops at once, and so I'm going to spread them out and use the whole grate area. I'll use all 3 burners. I'll turn them on to high. I will close the lid. 10 minutes later, I'll come back out, and this grill will be around 600 degrees, usually 550 to 600. 600 for certain with all 3 on high. And when I come out, this will be smoking. These will be searing hot, so I'll get good sear lines on my meat, and I'll end up with some absolutely fantastic cook. All right, that's all there is to it. 10-minute preheat, then we put the meat on there, and the meat needs to be seasoned before it hits this. The other trick is when we start cooking, I'll put the meat on here, I'll immediately close the lid, and I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. When this lid comes down, the timer's set for 5 minutes. The temperature gets lowered to medium, all the way down to a medium temperature, and that way, with a closed lid, you have the right temperature, you get good searing, you get your smoky flavor, and we're going to end up with pork chops that are absolutely stellar. This particular grill is a natural gas grill. I bought the version that you just hook to your house's gas supply. And if you have an outdoor pipe leading into your house for gas that's convenient for your grill to go next to, it's a great way of doing it. Okay, let's get this lid up. So I've got all 3 burners going. I'm going to set them on high. Actually, just a little below. There we go. Good heat coming up. I'll close this, and I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. During that time, I'm going to season my meat. All right, I have everything pounded out here. Let me show you. These are all those center cuts right here. The ends here and here, and this piece here, those were those fillet pieces. And then the head cuts were here and here. They give their distinct look when they're pounded down like this. Here we have some gorgeous looking chops. Now I want to season them with a little bit of salt. Hold that salt up good and high and just gently let it fall down onto them, all right? That way you get a fairly even spread on your salt. All right. And the other thing I mentioned before that I love to use is a good seasoned pepper. And that's what I'm going to put all across these. Now, if you want to just do your own, let me suggest to you a couple of options here. First, paprika. Wonderful on pork chops. All right. Also, you can do cayenne pork chops, but go sparing on it. It's really fiery hot and just slightly too much, and suddenly they're too hot to eat. Okay. The other things you can put on there, you can put like cumin. You can do, let's say, some ancho powder, or if you'd like chipotle powder. Those will work well on these. And of course, again, they're all just different chili powders, and that works well, really well, on pork chops. So you've seen what I've done here. You've seen the way I'm seasoning it and about how much, okay? And I would suggest just doing your thing, your way. If you want to try this way, it is fantastic. I really like these this way. I'm going to turn my temperature right now down to a medium. And I'm going to go ahead and get my meat up here and cooking. There we go. 5 minutes on this side, closed lid, medium heat, and then I turn it. 5 minutes on the other side, and they're done. Do not touch them, move them, or anything during the cook. Lid closed, just go away. There it is, the perfect little pork chops right there. And the neat thing is, what I love about these fabulous little medallions is the fact that they are so incredibly tender. I'm gonna tell you, the spice is perfect. The smokiness. Yeah, you can smoke on a gas grill. People tell me I don't like gas grills because I like the flavor of charcoal. Well, charcoal is the flavor of wood, okay, because it's made of wood. You can get that flavor. Just use a gas grill. Wrap your charcoal up in a pouch of foil, and imagine this. A bag of charcoal will then last you, what, a couple of years? All right? Plenty. Cool. Try this out. Fabulous, fabulous little pork chops. Thank you for watching Texas Cooking Today. If you would, take a look in the description box. You're going to see some links there. Links to my website, links to Texas Cooking Today, to lots of videos that I've produced over the years. And folks, there's some good recipes there. Please enjoy your pork chops, and I'm going to enjoy my pork chops, and I'm going to try to remember how to talk. And have a good day, all right? Bye-bye. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, those are good.